Yo guys, Jens here, and first of all, sorry for not uploading content for the longest time, but I've been busy gearing up the Shadow Priest, and I haven't really done that many arenas. I've been streaming though, so I'm gonna leave the link on the description if you want to follow my stream. I try to stream whenever I play. Sometimes I can't, but I do try to stream whenever I play. Now, today is gonna be a different video. I'm gonna go kind of back to what I used to do, which is just my opinion on current World of Warcraft. And this is gonna be a retail video, by the way. It's not gonna be about TBC. Even though I do have to say that the fact that you can't farm Alterac Valde, it's very annoying because you just can't gear up a new character unless you have a friend that doesn't mind helping you out, or you find someone, which makes gearing up way harder than it was back in the day, because back in the day you had AVQ even as a horde, obviously. But yeah, that's a whole different thing that has been a thing since TBC Classic dropped, and that's not the reason why I'm making the video. I'm making the video to talk about World of Warcraft retail and how to improve the PvP aspect. Now, I'm not gonna talk about PvE or the game overall, just for a simple reason, and the reason is uh, it's just way too much. It would have been for World of Warcraft to be changed in a way that you like go back to what used to be. You would need so many changes, from mobs being way harder to like just really simple stuff, or things that we perceive as simple, like the world being dangerous, not being able to just how do you say it, not being able to just AoE stuff down, all of that. But today it's not about that. It's about just it's about PvP, and I I want to give a specific example on how to fix PvP, and it will help, I would say, in other scenarios like in PvE and world in the world, which is the class design. The class design, I've been talking about it for quite a few years actually, and I think people don't realize how big of an issue it is in current retail, um, because either they don't play it anymore, or because they've known this class design since pretty much MOP or Legion, and they enjoyed those expansions or whatever, and they don't realize the problems that class designers have. Now, class design was changed, like I would say there's three great or four great changes in class design. Obviously, every expansion changed the class design, but there were four turning points for classes, I would say. And the first being Cataclysm. So back in Wrath of the Lich King Classic, and even TBC, you would bring the class, right? You would need a specific class because they brought different buffs to a raid or an arena team, right? Obviously, this was kind of changed in Wrath of the Lich King, which I will touch after I say this. And in my opinion, Wrath of the Lich King is the best class design the game ever had. Um, but there were big changes in Wrath of the Lich King, which kind of streamlined the classes a little bit more, and this wasn't as much as an issue. But the three great turning points, in my opinion, were Cataclysm, Mop, and Legion. Now, These three expansions, what they did was a huge streamline of the classes. So in Cataclysm, for example, oh, he's healing me. So in Cataclysm, for example, you would have what happened was they they made so every class had a kick pretty much, and they added stuff like solar beam to boomies, and this was a great turning point. Every class now had a kick, had some form of stun, and and had a magic dispel if you talk about healers. What the problem this created was obviously when you have, for example, a Resto Shaman, and Resto Shaman was very good throughout Cataclysm, is whenever you have a Resto Shaman or a Druid that until then didn't really had a dispel, it creates a huge disadvantage for the classes that had the dispel, like Paladins, and Paladins were pretty bad throughout Cataclysm, at least at the start of Cataclysm, unless you played like a comp like, I don't know, TSG maybe, DK Hunter, something like that. You would be at a huge disadvantage, right? And what this created was a huge disadvantage for this for some of the classes. Now, this was the first turning point because until then, like you didn't really had everyone having everything. You did have like a small, kind of small, um, a small streamline in Wrath of the Lich King. For example, Shadow Priests and Red Paladins would do the same, which is being mana batteries for the rest of the raids. But the streamline wasn't as big as right now in retail. So in Cataclysm they did that. In MOP they reiterated on that, and now Holy Paladins, for example, also have a kick, and they changed the classes. So everyone had everything, everyone was overpowered, therefore it was a balanced game. Now this created another problem with the streamlining of offensive cooldowns and defensive cooldowns, which were mostly made in MOP. Now people have trouble killing. And if you go back to BlizzCon, to the BlizzCon finals, where Min Poike faces Laser Chicken, you can see this in full display. Everyone has trouble killing. You need dampening. And you need dampening not really to kill, but to wound. Now all of a sudden the important part is surviving, and rot comps raise to god mode status, god comp stuff like LSD2, LSD, and some other comps raise to this status where if you just survive, you win. So you don't really need to win, you just need to survive. It's kind of like a situation like this, and you always had that type of comps like WLD and TBC. If you don't die, if you survive, you win. And it seems a bogus thing to say, like, oh, of course, if you survive, you win. But you also need to kill the enemy team in TBC and rats. And at this point in MOP, you don't, because the dots will kill them at some point because of the lack of mana. And the turning point, and in my opinion the worst class design, was in Legion. So in Legion they remade and redesigned every single class, and they removed, for example, survival from being a range spec to hunters, which is in my opinion one of the worst decisions they ever made. And they start giving resources to everyone, so now everyone plays the same. You can say, of course, that there's a few nuances to Shadow Priest in comparison to a Boomy. Of course, there are, but the way they play, it's kind of the same. And if you think about it, the way a Fury Warrior plays, it's kind of the same if a Shadow Priest plays. You build up a resource and then you dump that resource with cooldowns. Of course, there's more nuances to this, like I said, but it's pretty much the same in terms of gameplay. All the classes play the same. You either have combo points like rogues, warlocks, and monks, and feral druids, or you have a resource bar that needs to be emptied, like demon hunters, elementals, boomies, shadow priests, and more. I just don't care or remember most of the classes at this point. And this creates another problem, which is every class plays the same. The class design is streamlined to the max in since Legion. Now, why do I think this is a problem? This is a problem because regardless of what you play, you're playing the same class, pretty much, just with different icons and different animations and all of that. But you're pretty much playing the same class. You have a stun, you have a kick or a silence, you have a finisher, you have a builder or builders, and this is what creates a really feeling of no fun in the game. And fun doesn't come from tuning, by the way. Even if they tune the classes in PvE and PvP uh, like 100%, everyone is fully balanced around everything. Even if they did that, which is extremely hard, and I've only seen it like a couple of times, like maybe Wrath of the Lich King season 7, maybe Mob season 14. But even if they did that, and TBC season 3, even if they did that, you wouldn't have fun. And because the fun doesn't come from the tuning, the fun comes from playing your class. And if you think your class it's just like any other, and you don't really stand out in the way you use your tools, then how can you have fun, right? Because yes, you can. Let's say you're a shadow priest and you stun into a silence, a healer. You can do the same as a boomy. You bash into a silence, or you fully root into a silence. The playstyle. That's why, for example, in AWC, you see people swapping their characters so much because the way they play their characters, it's pretty much the same. It's easier now to have an alt and play it well and play it at the same level almost as your main than before, because the tools are almost the same. You go check the streamers and the binds are always the same. They just swap the talents, and you can check this from streamers. You can legit just go on any stream on retail and you see like a multi-classer and the binds are the same, and what's in those binds are the same, because you don't have, it's very rare to have like different tools. And now I'm gonna make the bridge to TBC and to Priest, and I'm gonna give you an example. Priest is my favorite class, except Warlock, of course. If you don't count a Warlock, Priest is my favorite class. Shadow Priest, that is. It's my second or third favorite spec in the game. And the reason is because I feel like I'm a priest. So I have dispel, I have heals, I have shield, and by heals I mean prayer of mending, renew. I have exactly the same tools. What changes the priest class, and this is what I've been saying for years, that they need to do. The classes themselves need to be equal. So within the class, so if you're a warlock or a priest, you need to have the exact same tools. And then on the talent trees, you need to put the flavor of the spec. You need to worry about first the class, and then within the talent trees you worry about the flavor of the spec, which it's not possible with the current tree design. And if you spec into shadow, you have VT, you have shadow form, you have empiric embrace, you have silence, you have a shorter fear, you have mind flay. And then if you spec into discipline, you have pain suppression, you have a faster mana burn, you have power infusion, and it's the same for every class. And what this makes is you still feel like you're playing a priest regardless of the spec. You just have different tools, and these different tools are better in certain situations and just make up for the class. But you still keep the magic dispel, you still keep the shield, you still keep the palm, you still keep the renew, you still keep the flash shield, the greater heal, the heal, you still keep most the fear. you still keep the most tools. Now fast forwards to retail, and you still have Smite as well. Sorry about that. You even still have Smite and Holy Fire. Of course, you don't do it, but you have it. Now, you might think this is. Sorry. Sorry about that, guys. You might think this is not a big deal, but it is. Because this is within the same class. You have the baseline tools, and then within each spec, you have the flavor of that spec. And if I swap to Warlock, my tools are completely different from the Priest. Now, Warlocks in TBC are not a good example because they are overpowered. But if I go from Priest to Shaman, there's a huge difference in gameplay. A huge difference. And I'm not saying the rotation, I'm saying the gameplay in PvP. This is about PvP. But in retail, there's not really a big difference. And this is what I want to talk about. The class design needs to go back. In order for retail to be good, the class design, and I truly believe the devs want retail to succeed. But in order for retail to succeed, the devs need to go back. They just do. I'm not saying to TBC, by the way. I'm saying to Wrath of the Lich King. They need to roll back the classes. There's no other way around to make the gameplay feel rewarding and the classes feel engaging. You can tweak some of the Wrath of the Lich King design, of course, but to better match the current design view. But they need to go back. They need to think about the game long term instead of short term, which is what I think it kind of started all of this downhill. They were trying to milk the game. That's at least how I felt as a player. But they just need to revise the class design. Uh, it's so simple. Uh, I'm checking streams, right, for retail. Lately, I was thinking, not lately, like a month ago, I was thinking to try out retail. I even started to install the game, but then I was watching a stream and I just didn't recognize the game. It feels like it's a game for 10-year-olds, and there's no problem with that, but of course, I'm not gonna play that game. Everything's super animated, like everyone is just super fast, like you're on the target 100% of the time in PvP, but you're not really doing anything. You're just pressing buttons until dampening comes or until a big cooldown comes. And this is another problem with the current design in retail. You can't have the builders have outshine the the spenders, because the spenders are the big animation, right? You have this big animation. The builders don't really have insane animation. So what they do is the builders do no damage and the spenders do a lot of damage. And what this creates is with the spenders, there's modifiers, percent modifiers. And you've heard Van Rook especially talk about this. You have percent Supatis and all of those streamers. You have these percent modifiers for the spenders. That's why you get one-shotted by Demon Bolt, for example. That's why you get one-shotted by Combust. Um, and the difference between not having cooldowns and having cooldowns, it's way too big. And that's why I want classes rolled back to Wrath of the Lich King, because back in the day, in Wrath of the Lich King, you didn't really had cooldowns. So your builders were actually doing the same damage that current spenders do in terms of percent. Like a Mind Blast as a Shadow Priest would do such an insane damage, actually an insane damage. A Shadow Word, even in TBC, a Mind Blast into Shadow Word Death, it's almost 50% of someone's HP, or at least 20%. You go to retail, maybe it does 5%, and it has a cooldown. But yeah, guys, I can't really talk specifics, right? as we are losing this. I really can't talk specifics about what they need to do to every class. I think the easiest way is just a rollback, and a general rollback, and that's the only way to kind of save PvP, because I really don't trust them designing or redesigning the classes again, because they've done it in Cataclysm, and they've done it in MOP, and they've done it in Legion, in every single way. Like they brought something like cool maybe, but the amount of toxicity as well to the game, especially PvP, with the amount of stuns, with the amount of pseudo CC, with the amount of modifiers, it's just too much. At the same time, every time they did that, they emphasize the specs and not the class. They emphasize each talent tree, each spec as a talent tree. So if you spec Shadow, if you decide to go Shadow on retail, you don't really have a chance to get any discipline points, or discipline strength, or holy strengths, whatever, right? As Shadow, you don't have a good power word shield on retail, for example. Like, you can't really play and mix and match the talent trees, because you're locked on that single talent tree, which is, in my opinion, a mistake. And they emphasize the specs and not really the class, which is, in my opinion, the biggest mistake they've done over the years, is emphasizing the spec. The spec, it's a small part of a bigger thing, which is the class, and the class needs to fill a hole. If a holy priest and the disc priest have a dispel, then shadow priest should also have a dispel. It makes sense, because all of the sudden you don't you as a class, and if you think this like in terms of let's say it's real life, just because you're studying math, right, or history, you don't forget about science, right? You don't, well, you forget, but you know what I mean. You don't forget the basics of science. Just because you're studying a new thing, a new, yeah, a new thing, you don't really forget 100% of the other things. And it feels like my warlock is not really warlock, but my priest on retail. It feels like every time I go shadow, I forget about how to dispel other players. It's really weird. It doesn't make sense. The base tool kit should be there, and dispel and other things should be there. And then with the specs, you just add a little flavor to the class. As a shadow priest, I don't know, you can do 100 things, but the current design is just not good. It's kind of the same with paladins. You have dispel as holy, and then you go prot and red, and you lose this utility. And it's also a matter of trying to just make every class the same. Every class is the same now. They've been trying this for years, and they did it finally, and I think it's a really bad design. In my opinion, a class like Red shouldn't have a kick. They have insane burst, they have insane utility even without this spell. I think stuff like thinking about, okay, if Red doesn't have a kick, then we give him a dispel. Things like this could revive the game and could give a different vibe to the game. So now all of the sudden the synergies are even more important. But I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Wrath of the Lich King design was the best, where not everyone had a kick, not everyone had a stun, not everyone had a dispel, and you just played around the strengths of the comp that you're playing. If you're a shatter, you have Hex, you have Poly, you have Fear, you have Silence, you have Counterspell, you have Decursors, and you have Magic Dispel around Shadow Priest. All of a sudden, Shatter plays really good. And then you have double Purge, obviously, and Bloodlust. I think each class offering a different thing, it's not a bad thing. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. I think the class design, it's simply horrific. I was watching Smexin play Affliction Warlock and it just on retail and it just made me almost like I just stopped watching after 1 minute because the the, the classes are just not fun to watch even. I don't get people who still play retail because of the class design. I understand that if you don't want to play TBC and you really like World of Warcraft, you play retail obviously, but watching the class design is just it's just horrendous. And any class, even Shadow Priest, Shadow Priest is probably the best designed class at the moment with warriors there. And I'm not talking about strengths or tuning. I'm talking about design. That's why they are so good, Shadow Priests and Warriors. By the way, it's not only because of the tuning, it's the tools, the amount of tools they have, and the different tools they have. But this, but even those two classes are so much worse in terms of feeling than TBC Warrior and TBC Shadow Priest, in my opinion, obviously. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think. I'm gonna start analyzing games again. I'm gonna start playing with Sebe again, the Druids, because we stopped. It was helping out my warrior. I also have a warrior. That's why I'm saying warrior in TBC feels way better to play and way more fun than on retail. Um, Even though you do get CC'd for long periods of time. But yeah, I'm gonna start analyzing games again. I'm gonna push again in 2v2 in TBC. But I just wanted to vent a little bit about class design because I've been saying this for years now, I think. And when TBC was coming, I did warn that TBC class design is so much better. Of course, you have the RNG, and that's pretty much the only problem TBC has, in my opinion. It's the RNG, and Wrath of the Lich King fixes most of the RNG. That's why Wrath of the Lich King, in my opinion, is the best game in terms of class design. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think about this. If you still play World of Warcraft retail, why do you play it? Do you still have fun with the classes? Do you feel like if you play Shadow Priest and the Boomy, are they really that different in terms of playstyle? Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. Anyways, thanks for watching. Peace.